Well, Razorback fans, it's been a tough year so far for the Razorback basketball team, especially in the SEC. But Cal's not giving up. At least you hope not. Is he going to mix it up a little bit more this week? Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I'm also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. The Razorbacks return home, starting 0-5, looking for a first win of the SEC slate. Got Georgia this week, and then this weekend, of course, have a team called Oklahoma coming to town. So let's talk a little bit more about it, some of the mix-ups and some of the changes people are hoping Cal can make with Curtis Wilkerson of Inside Arkansas and also a contributor here of Locked On Razorbacks. And Curtis, I know you've talked about this ad nauseum, but after that big, massive loss Arkansas took on Saturday against Missouri, there was a change up into the starting lineup. Didn't really work because Arkansas got down big and never really got close again. But as far as this week goes, the lineups, rotations, Boogie Fland situation with an injured hand, how do you feel like Cal is going to mix it up and try some new things as far as roster and depth chart and starting and all of that stuff?
Man, who knows? We'll see what he does there. I appreciate him at least making an effort to change, even though, like you said, it didn't work out. A lot of people have been clamoring for Arkansas to go a little bit bigger in the lineup and slide a dude Theo up to the 3 and put Trevin Brazile in as a starter and playing what they do and have 3 bigger bodies in there. And yeah, they did that. And then it was 18-2 before they could blink. So yeah, it didn't work out, but at least you tried. You mentioned the Boogie Fland situation. I think that's the biggest thing looming over Arkansas right now. Are they going to shut him down for a little while so that hand can heal up? Or is he going to try to play through it? I imagine if he's active, he's probably going to start and play a good amount of minutes. But if not, you really are in a conundrum there. And so I think a lot of people would probably say, well, the easy answer is, DJ Wagner just slides up to point guard. And then you put in either, John L. Davis or Carter Knox, whichever one of those guys at the off guard position. You probably then keep the bigger lineup. I imagine you would stay with that with Theo at the 3. I would argue maybe it would be worth shaking things up a little bit more. One thing I would consider is putting the ball in John L. Davis's hands and having him initiate the offense. I know what people are thinking. No, don't do that. But the biggest thing with John L. Davis has been he's been so passive. He just doesn't look comfortable. He looks like he's going through the motions out of there. He hasn't been in attack mode like he was in the past. One way to see if he still has that in him is to put the ball in his hands, force the issue, make him do it. He's going to be getting more touches if it's just him and DJ in the backcourt anyway. But it's something a little different that maybe they consider. And then there's something to be said maybe for riding the hot hand, John. We've been waiting for Big Z to do something all of SEC play. Then he winds up coming out and, he's the one forward on the roster that doesn't start, but then he has a double-double, a bunch of blocks, looked the part, man, against Missouri, and he played 30 minutes in that game. Jonas Adu hasn't been giving you much consistency. Maybe he needs to settle into the game and watch from the bench for a little bit and then be the rotation guy. Maybe they throw Big Z in there and let him get a start, see if they could shake things up a little bit and get something going.
Yeah, I hate to even ask this question because it's it's just the way negative things are going with how they've lost. But besides Nelly Davis, I know it's the obvious answer, but has there been you mentioned Jonas Adu and you mentioned maybe a DJ Wagner, which certain people feel a certain way about, whatever it is. But disappointment wise, like who's been the one player besides Nelly that has just you felt like there would be a lot more from them and they just haven't contributed, whether it's injury, whether it's offense, whether it's defense, whatever it is, like who's been another disappointment or one of the disappointments for Arkansas this year?
Man, we could start at the top of the roster and work our way down aside from Theo, maybe. It feels like Adu really stands out there. And for a lot of the same reasons that John L. Davis does, they were just such highly touted transfers coming in. And the thing with Adu was he's done it at the exact level that Arkansas needs him to do it at. He's been a 4-year player, over at Tennessee, has had a lot of success, developed, emerged as a starter for them last season, has an all SEC year, helps lead them to the Elite 8. That's about as sure of a thing as you can get, except it's not. And he's shown some flashes. I mean, at LSU, he had some turnover problems, but he had a double-double and had 4 blocks. And so it was like at least a sign of the guy you expected to get. but he's having far more games where he just kind of has a disappearing act than where he's really performing. And he didn't even wind up playing that much against Missouri. If you don't have him consistently, that's a huge, huge problem for this team as well. So that would probably be, if I had to pick one to point to, where I would start. But I will admit, there are other issues here. Like I expected Big Z to take a bigger step than he has, and that's hampered some things. I know he's been injured with that ankle that he continues to roll, but still, you haven't gotten as much out of him as you expected. Carter Knox, a 5-star freshman, a McDonald's All-American. Not all of those guys become world beaters right away, but I think you certainly maybe expected more than you're getting from him as well. Billy Richmond, a 5-star too, but he's a guy that I think people viewed as more of a project player, a year 2 guy. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty to go around. If I had to pick one, it'd have to be Adu.
Well, I'm sure you got in this question a lot too, but you think about the 5 stars, you mentioned the players that they are and the big time transfers. Everyone had that expectation because of the high level talent that they are. But you could play the NBA scout a little bit. How many of these guys are going to get drafted in the NBA this year? Like, I mean, because that was the thing is before preseason, felt like, oh, if you said 5 of these guys would get drafted, I don't think anybody would have even thought the wiser. But at this point in time and the way things are going, the way they're playing and everything, how many guys do you think, of course, not only go to the NBA draft, but also get drafted in the NBA from Arkansas?
Yeah, Adu Thero really stands out because when Arkansas got him, he was just kind of a versatile hustle role guy from Kentucky who averaged 7 and 5, but he was kind of popping into the back end of the first round and in some of these NBA mock drafts for this upcoming draft. And people are like, well, why is that the case? Well, you look at him and you see all the intangibles and it's like, okay, if it clicks for this dude, he's a pro. Well, it's clicked for him. Now the 3-point shot hasn't come along as much as people kind of hope, but every other part of his game has taken such a huge jump. He strikes me as a guy that, he's got a chance still to get drafted in the first round, but definitely draftable at this point. I'd be kind of surprised if he didn't move on. Then outside of that, it's been easy all year to say Boogie Fland, right? Now he's popping up, as the back end of the lottery kind of guy and was really, just kind of taking the SEC by storm until SEC play and starting to play better competition and grown men and guys who are more physical and veteran and savvy. And he's really, really dropped off with the efficiency. Still has great assist to turnover ratio, which is good to see, but his shooting splits have gone way, way down against good competition. I'm sure that people are taking notice of that. He struggles to finish around the rim, which is something he would really have to be able to do in the NBA. And then you got the injury now, and we'll see if he misses any time or how much time that winds up being. But his stock dropping some. So what that means for him moving forward, I don't know. Now, some of these other guys, it seems like Cal always has one that enters the draft and it surprises you. It's like, really? That guy? I'm sure they'll have a guy like that. But in terms of like surefire draft picks outside of maybe those two, I don't know that I'm really seeing much.
Well, Arkansas did lose out on one of the players that they're hoping to have from the high school ranks last week. So where do they go from here? We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, I'm here to tell you about our friends over at PrizePicks, the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, PrizePicks has the game changed in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or the regular season, PrizePicks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying the football action. Now it's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than PrizePicks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players, and if your picks hit, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. That's right, 1,000 times your money just for making a few simple picks. It's all about hot takes for a lot of people this season. And this week on PrizePicks, you got to be looking at the playoffs. You got to be looking at the college football playoff tonight, the national championship. You also can look at all the other great sporting events that are happening on PrizePicks. And they also have Flex Play where you can still double your money if your picks don't hit. So with the app, you get your winnings fast, sometimes as little as 15 minutes. So get ready to run your game this football season. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with PrizePicks. It's PrizePicks. Run your game. We're also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. With the NFL playoffs being here, it's not too late to get in on the action right now with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has had so many ways for you to pick up a W. You got to love which betting on players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's very thrilling and very easy to win. So not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, so much more, so many parlays, so many things you can check out. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Continuing our discussion here on Locked On Razorbacks Pod at the Palace Edition with Curtis Wilkerson of Inside Arkansas. So Curtis, last week, I guess Muhammad Silla was a player that Arkansas was looking at, a top 40 center, one of the best centers in the country, depending on who you looked at, chose Georgia Tech instead of Arkansas. Arkansas already has 3 players out of the high school class for 2026 or 2025 heading to the Hill. So what do you think Cal and the roster is going to be like? Are they going to still try to find another high school player to get? Or are they just going to focus on the transfer portal? What do you think the move is after losing out on a player like him that Cal makes with this roster next year?
Yeah, it was interesting because Arkansas was really starting to trend and gain some steam for Silla, and then it was almost like a midnight hour that thing kind of flipped. Seems to me like the bag was up and that Arkansas maybe wasn't interested in getting in a bidding war for this particular player. Doesn't mean he wasn't a good one. I wish Arkansas would have got him. But I don't think he was necessarily like an immediate impact, insert him as a starter kind of guy. But probably somebody who could fill a role for you, maybe coming off the bench in year one with a super, super high ceiling. What are they going to do now? Well, in the front court, it seems like they're going to have to go to the portal, and they were going to need to anyway. They've got to get some grown men in there in the paint. They've got to get more physical, stronger. They're probably going to have to win a bidding war and get a starter at center after this year, and then add, 2, maybe more pieces beyond that. For the high school class itself, still a couple guys to keep an eye on. Nate Ament is one that stands out there, a 5-star top 5 player in the class. He's listed as a power forward, but he's not a big man. He's more of like a very tall, long wing, 6'9", 185 pounds, elite level shooter. He's a kind of like not a late bloomer, but like a late decider. It's probably going to come in this later period with him. He just dropped a top 11 and it's January. Arkansas is in it. I think if he had a top 5, Arkansas would probably be in it, but I don't think they're at the top. They haven't got him on campus for a visit yet. Cal has gone to see him a number of times. So that kind of tells you there might be some priority there. You get him on a visit, maybe we can start to really consider the possibilities there. But I know Duke, among other schools, are really active with him. Outside of that, it would be like Mika Murinen, who's a 5-star prospect in the 2026 class. There's been some rumors he might reclassify up. If he does that, Arkansas would be in a decent spot there. He's already taken an official visit, but that hasn't happened yet. So it's a big what if. And then, outside of that, like, do they go look over in Europe to find a guy? I mean, we had the Igor Demin talks, over the course of the summer. Nolan Traore, they had these guards that all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, Arkansas is really, they're really active in the recruitment here. They didn't get either one of them, but they do have kind of an international presence over there. So maybe that would be something to keep an eye on as well. But when it comes to the front court, they're going to have to do some nasty work, John, in the transfer portal to rebuild this thing. I don't know that they're going to have anybody coming back. Maybe Big Z, but you'd still have a lot of work to do regardless.
Hey, Trevor Brazile could probably still come back. Who knows? Like, maybe they could still bring him back. I don't really know, but it is fascinating of how, the roster obviously has not gone according to plan this year for Cal in the way that he's management and the way that it's been brought about. But as far as the recruiting, I'm curious because Cal's never had a problem with recruiting, and it looks like he's still doing a great job. But with the horrible season so far, do you think that's going to impact that for Cal and maybe some of these players that he's looking at, whether it's from the portal or high school for this next year, where especially with other teams, other schools going at him? Do you think it's going to have a negative impact, or at least a significant negative impact on his recruiting if the season continues to go the way it is?
I don't think so, especially not in the portal. I mean, money talks is the thing. So I guess the biggest question I would have is, with the guys who are cutting or the guy who's cutting the big NIL check, who's not getting a return on his investment so far with this particular class, is he willing and able to write that again? Right. And I think he probably is. So if the money's there, and then Calipari has such a track record, we know he talks about it all the time, all the draft picks, the one and dones, the NBA guys, he's still going to get really, really good players. But there will be a little bit of a challenge because, some of the sales pitch that he does have maybe to a lesser degree, he's not going to have. Like, oh, we went at such a high level. Oh yeah, all the NCAA tournaments. Oh, look at the success stories from last year. There's going to be some negative recruiting involved. Like if I'm recruiting against Arkansas for a portal player, I say, see what happened to John L. Davis when he went over there? You remember Jonas Adu, the All-SEC guy? What happened to him? People are going to be able to point that stuff out. He's going to have to be ready to counteract that, and maybe the best way to do that is with an extra 0 on the NIL check.
Well, whatever it takes, he's going to have his work cut out for him, not only this season, but also continuing to add some players there, too. It's Curtis Wilkerson. You can catch him out on Inside Arkansas at the Palace Podcast and talking all things Razorback basketball. And also a contributor here to Locked On Razorbacks. Appreciate everybody listening in and watching. And be sure to subscribe to Locked On Razorbacks wherever podcasts are found. And we'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. And we'll see you then.